To begin this, let's kick it off and hear from NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine.
Well, thank you, Bettina. It's good to be here on this conference call with so many people that have been following what NASA is doing. Today we're making a historic announcement. We are following through on the President's first space policy directive. It said that we were going to go to the moon, that we were going to go sustainably, that we were going to go with commercial partners, that we were going to go with international partners. We were going to use the resources of the moon to learn how to live and work on another world for long periods of time. And then, of course, we're going to take all of that capability onto Mars. And so today, that effort to get to the moon, we're announcing contractors that are going to enable us to achieve that. The one thing that we have not had as an agency under development is a human landing system. This is the last piece that we need in order to get to the moon, and now we're going to have that under development. When I say this is historic, the United States of America has not had a human landing system since 1972, and so now, for the first time since 1972, in the year 2020, Congress gave us a budget, a bipartisan budget. Members of the House, members of the Senate, Republicans and Democrats gave us a budget that included funding for a human landing system, something that we have not had as an agency or as a country since 1972. So now we've got that funding, and today we're going under contract with 3 companies that are going to take us all the way to the moon. And of course, some of you have already seen my tweet on it. Those companies have been announced. But I want to say before we get into this, I want to say that it's important that this agency do this now, because our country, and in fact the whole world, has been shaken by this coronavirus pandemic. And yet we need to give people hope. We need to give them something that they can look up to, dream about, something that will inspire not just the nation, but the entire world. And I think that's what NASA does. It's what we've done historically. We go back to tough times in American history, the 1960s, with the Cold War at its height, a war in Vietnam. We think about the civil rights violations, the civil rights protests, assassinations, and yet in the midst of that most difficult time in American history, we were able to go all the way to the moon. And here we are, all these years later, in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic, and there's a lot of concern, a lot of fear, and yet this little agency is still moving forward in a very meaningful way, and we're doing it with our commercial partners. Again, NASA has a goal. We want to be able to go to the moon, but we want to be a customer. In so many cases, we want to be a customer. We want to drive down the cost. We want to increase the access. We want to have our partners have customers that are not just us, so that they compete on cost and innovation, and just bring capability that we've never had before. So we're really excited about today's announcement. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Bettina, and you can go through the list of the different speakers, and we'll look forward to answering questions here when the time is right.
Thank you, Jim. Next, we'll hear from HLS Program Manager Lisa Watson-Morgan, who will tell us more about the 3 U.S. companies building the Artemis human lander. Lisa?
Hey, thank you. I am so honored to be part of the NASA team working towards our Artemis mission and to lead the incredible human landing system team of people across the agency, and of course now partnering with U.S. industry to meet our nation's goals. Today, we are so excited to announce that we have awarded contracts to 3 companies who will begin the development on our integrated human landing system to return the next man and the first woman to the surface of the moon. One thing we were striving for with these solicitations and announcements is to see what U.S. industry could bring us with respect to innovation. And boy, did they deliver. We have 3 notably different architectures, from a 1-stage, a 2-stage, and a 3-stage architecture. That achieves the innovation and the dissimilar redundancy of approaches that we wanted. So without further ado, the contracts were awarded in alphabetical order to the national team with Blue Origin of Kent, Washington as the prime, with Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Draper Labs as key partners. Blue's national team's design is a three-stage architecture consisting of an ascent, descent, and transfer element. A unique aspect of the Blue Origin team is their ability to leverage the Orion Heritage System for their ascent element from Lockheed Martin. Blue will develop the descent element, and Northrop Grumman will provide the transfer element. Their development approach includes an uncrewed lunar landing test flight for the descent element prior to human missions. The second one, in alphabetical order, is Dynetics of Huntsville, Alabama, who is leveraging over 25 companies as partners. The Dynetics design is a two-stage architecture with a common ascent and descent element and anytime abort capability. It has a unique low-slung crew module, putting the crew very close to the lunar surface for safe access. Dynetics will perform a demonstration flight to verify key capabilities for its lander system. The third company that we awarded to is SpaceX of Hawthorne, California. The SpaceX design is a single-stage solution using their Starship concept. It provides extensive volume for the crew with 2 airlocks and ample downmass capability. It can land up to 100 tons of cargo on the moon. It builds off of their Falcon and Dragon heritage. The SpaceX proposal included in-space propellant transfer demonstration and an uncrewed lunar test landing. The diverse set of architectures and partners prepares NASA to perform the Artemis missions, and we look forward to a successful lunar landing in 2024 with U.S. industry. This highly anticipated first step is such an excitement for the Artemis generation as we prepare to go to the moon. Back to you, Bettina.
Thank you, Lisa. That's incredible news. We're really excited to finally be able to speak out this important progress for the Artemis program. Next, we'll hear from Doug Loverro, the Associate Administrator for Human Exploration and Operation Mission Director here at NASA. Doug?
Hey, thanks, Bettina, and welcome everybody to this incredible announcement we have today. I think you all heard the excitement in Lisa's voice, and so well deserved for the job that she and her team have done getting us this far, and for our wonderful partners we now have on board. Let's make no mistake about it. We are now on our way. There are no hurdles left. There are no more puzzle pieces to add. We've got all the pieces we need. We've got the launch platform with the Space Launch System. We've got Orion. We've got our ground systems ready to go. We've got our gateway in work, and now we have really the jewel in the crown, which is our human landing system. So this is just a fantastic day. We've got 2 prime objectives that the administrator talked to. We've got to get to the moon fast, and we've got to get there sustainably. And both of these objectives are key for our vision to accomplish what the nation needs to accomplish and what we've been asked to accomplish over these next several years. Make no mistake, this is not going to be easy. Even with all the work we've done, with all the work that our partners have done, this is still going to be a lot of hard work. There are going to be many hurdles in the future for us to overcome. We've got to lock down the requirements for our systems. We've got to make sure they're focused on both of those objectives. We need to make sure we've got the right designs, the right engineering, the right talent, and quite frankly, the right level of both commercial ingenuity and NASA good old lessons learned to put together to make this all work. So we are incredibly excited. Despite COVID-19, we're not slowing down. Our teams are ready to go, and I'm sure our industry partners are ready to go as well. So we are really looking forward to the next phase, which is to get these contracts moving and begin making our way to the surface of the moon once again. And Bettina, with that, I will turn it back to you, and we can go on.
Thank you, Doug. This is exciting for our agency and our human spaceflight program. Now we're going to open up the questions from reporters. I just want to remind all the reporters on the line to please press *1 to get into the queue to ask a question. Again, press *1 to ask a question. Remember to state your name and the media and your media affiliation before you speak, and address the speaker you'd like to answer your question. We also have additional NASA leaders on the line that can help answer any of your concerns or questions. And again, we ask for one question per speaker at this time, so we can get to as many questions as possible. So with that, let me look at the queue, and we'll take our first question. It looks like Jeff Faust.
All right, sorry, just one moment.
Thank you, operator.
Jeff Faust, your line is open.
Hi, Jeff Faust from Space News. We'll try this again. For the proposals, all the three companies, are they able to dock directly with Orion to enable landing? Do they have to work through the gateway? I know there's some discussion back and forth about how that would work given the gateway's uncertain role for supporting a 2024 landing. Thanks.
So I'll go ahead and field that one. A couple of things that are important to note. And Jeff, I know you know this, we've talked about it a lot. The gateway is critically important for what NASA is trying to achieve. Remember what we said. We need to do two things. Number one, we need to get to the moon soon. The reason we go fast is because it enables the program to be successful. We've tried to go to the moon before. It takes too long, it costs too much money, and it gets canceled. Going fast reduces the political risk, just like when you talk about the time value of money. If you're going to borrow money for long periods of time, the interest rate is higher because there's more risk. The sooner we go, the less political risk. But we also need to go sustainably. We need to be able to go and be able to go again and again and again. The challenge with Apollo is that it ended. And we want to make sure that this program, the Artemis program, goes on for generations to come. And so when we think about the gateway is a critically important element for that sustainable architecture. We would like to see private companies build landers that can go back and forth to the surface of the moon over and over and over again. Reusable landers, that's how we drive down cost. It's how we increase access. It's how we enable the commercialization in a more robust fashion. So Gateway is important not just for reusability, it's important for sustainability, it's important for maneuverability. We need to get to the poles of the moon, we need to get to the equatorial regions of the moon, and of course Gateway is important for scientific reasons, things to do on the Gateway scientifically, astrophysics, communication architectures around the moon. The Gateway is important for all of these things. And of course, it's something that our international partners are very, very interested in as well. And they're interested in building habitation modules and doing the experiments that they want to do way out in deep space and using the Gateway as a tool for that. So it is in keeping with Space Policy Directive 1. We go to the moon. We go to the moon sustainably. We go with commercial partners, which is what today's announcement is all about. And we go with international partners, and the international partnerships are critically important, and the Gateway is part of that as well. So I want to emphasize for everybody on the phone how important the Gateway is for the sustainable architecture and for a whole host of other reasons. It is also important to note that we have the priority is to get to the moon by 2024. And we believe that getting to the moon by 2024 does not require the Gateway. We need to get to the moon by 2024, and we will work with our partners, our commercial partners here, to get to the surface of the moon as fast as possible, and the Gateway is not required for that 2024 mission. In fact, I would go as far as to say that it's not likely that we will use the Gateway for the 2024 mission. Although what we're doing here in this base period is we're evaluating all the alternatives with our commercial partners to see what is in the realm of what puts us in a position to have the lowest risk and the highest probability of success. Remember, we had direction from the Vice President of the United States Anything that is not necessary, we need to move out of the way so that we can get to the surface of the moon. And that's what we're doing. So the gateway is important for NASA. It is certainly not necessary for a 2024 moon landing. And I would say that it's not likely, although we're not taking it off the table when we think about this base period and how we put together the architecture.
Thank you. We're going to take our next question. Our next question comes from Irene Klotz of Aviation Week. Irene?
Thanks, Bettina. Hi, Jim. So do the human landing systems also not depend on SLS to get to the moon by 2024? With the selection of the SpaceX Starship, it seems that the door is open to have an architecture that doesn't use SLS.
So the SLS and the European Service Module and the Orion Crew Capsule and the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, all of that is necessary to get humans to the moon by 2024. That's the only rocket that's going to be human-rated by 2024 that will take humans to the moon. When we talk about the landing system specifically, we need to get the landing system to the moon one way or another, and it doesn't have to go in an SLS. For example, we talked about the different approaches that were identified earlier. We've got a single stage, a two-stage, and a three-stage approach, each of them very different, and yet they could launch on any number of different rockets that are not the SLS. And in fact, our baseline solution is to launch the components independently and then aggregate them at the moon with automatic rendezvous and docking, and then go down to the surface. That being said, as we go through this base period, we might find out that we need an integrated lander. And if we do need an integrated lander, and one of our partners wants to integrate it on the surface, then the question is, how do you get that to the moon? That if you have an integrated lander that weighs 40 metric tons, you might need a heavy lift rocket, for example. That would require the SLS. So the solution set is really open at this point, but at the same time, we know that the companies that have made proposals have their own ideas, and what we're looking forward to in this base period is really working with them to very specifically define the requirements that achieve the outcome, that give us the highest probability of success and the lowest risk. So with that, Doug, if I'll turn it over to you, and you might want to turn it over to Lisa Watson-Morgan.
Sure, so I'll say a couple of words, and then Lisa may want to add in as well. So, Irene, a great question. I mean, it's very clear all of our partners proposed their own launch solutions that are specific to their designs and their requirements. None of them proposed to use anything other than commercial rockets or rockets that are being developed to be commercial rockets. And I think that's very important. I mean, that's one of the great things we see out of what NASA and industry have done over the last decade, 2 decades, is together we've now got a host of incredibly capable launch platforms, either already operating or in development, that can do this mission for us. So that is our focus right now. That's our baseline approach. As the boss said, we're going to look at all alternatives as we go through this base period to make sure that we can meet the objectives that the president has asked us to meet to get there by 2024 and to get there sustainably. But right now, all of the approaches are baselined on commercial launch systems. Lisa, anything you want to add?
I think you summarized it well. I think the first 3 months are real critical to us to start assessing things, but I think you and the administrator did a great job. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll take our next reporter, and before that, I just want to remind everyone, if you have a question, please press *1 to be entered into the queue. Operator, next reporter.
Marcia Smith, your line is open.
Thanks so much. This is Marcia Smith from SpacePolicyOnline.com. I'm curious, when you were talking about the hurdles that still have to be overcome, Doug, I'm sure you were thinking more in terms of technical hurdles, but I'm curious as to how the congressional budget situation has changed because of COVID-19, and what kind of sense you're getting from Congress as to whether or not you're still going to be willing to fund these human landing systems and the rest of the Artemis program.
So, Marsha, I think you asked that question to me, but I'm probably going to hand it back to the boss in 2 seconds, because if there's anybody who knows better what's going on the Hill, it's my boss. But everybody I've talked to on the Hill has not suggested any impact to the NASA budget from what's going on right now from COVID-19. Of course, I'm not privy to everything that's happening there, but right now we think we've got incredible bipartisan support for this program. All of the budget discussions I have had have been very, very positive from everybody. And quite frankly, I think there's a sense of excitement around the country, and this announcement being part of it, that we really are going to go do this. We have a plan that is doable, and a plan that is doable garners support. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to the administrator, because I know he's had many more conversations than I. So, sir, I'll hand the ball to you.
Thank you, Doug. And Marshall, that's an important question, and I get this question a lot. But what I think is important is that as we go through the coronavirus pandemic, what we've seen is a lot of the private sector spending has dried up. The private sector investment has dried up. And so what happens is the government has come in with the CARES Act and other bills to make sure that spending continues, so that our economy continues to move forward. And they've done that in a bipartisan way. I've heard people talk about it as, as if we're in the midst of a war, and in the midst of a war, you have to borrow money, and that's happening right now. At the same time, they're also talking about doing an infrastructure package, because on top of the stimulus that has kept the economy going, they're also talking about doing the infrastructure package as a part of that. I don't see NASA, our budget being cut because of this. When you look at the amount of money being spent, the NASA budget is really small compared to the federal budget. And certainly we're not going to be the solution to balancing the budget. But I would also say, even more importantly, there's no appetite right now to cut spending, because spending is how the economy is continuing to move forward, and members of Congress on both sides of the aisle have expressed that to me over the last 2 days. I don't know how many members of Congress I've talked to, but a lot, because I wanted to make sure they were informed before we went forward with this announcement today. And both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, the House and the Senate, they have all been very supportive of the effort to get to the moon. We have a budget request that reflects that priority, and I have not heard anybody suggest that because of the coronavirus pandemic, we're going to have to cut NASA. And if they were to suggest that, it would be it wouldn't be taken seriously, just because our budget is not that big compared to the spending levels that are happening right now. So I don't think that we're in any jeopardy. I don't have a crystal ball, but it looks like Republicans and Democrats have expressed nothing except enthusiasm for what we're trying to achieve with sending the next man and the first woman to the moon.
Thank you. And thanks, everyone, for joining our call on the Artemis Human Landing System. We're going to take our next question from Tim Fernholz of Quartz.
Hey, real quick, Katina, for Marcia, yes. And I think this is something I want to make sure that we make clear. If we do an infrastructure package as a nation, I would like NASA to be, part of that infrastructure package, and that's what I'm going to be working for as the NASA administrator. So in the end, if we do an infrastructure package and NASA is a part of it, it could help us. It could increase our probability of success here.
Thank you.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
No, sir. Yeah, go, Tim.
This is Tim Kernels from Course. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us about this. Just to follow on what Marcia was just asking, when we talk to members of Congress, they do say they're excited about the return to the moon, but then they also say they don't have enough answers about how it's happening and they don't know what the cost will be. I know there's been a review ongoing. When will you be able to answer questions from members of Congress about specifically what the plan is for 2024, and when will you be able to have a price tag for that mission?
Yeah, that's another good question. So a couple of things on the budget side of things. We have now submitted our 2021 budget request, and we're looking at a $3 billion increase for NASA, and most of that is focused on the human landing system, which today we're announcing the original contracts for the human landing system. So as we move forward, as days go on, for 2021, our budget would be about $25 billion, and then it would go up to $26 billion, and then, $27 billion, and eventually it levels off and it comes back down. And we believe within the budget, request that we submitted for 2021 and the associated increases and then leveling off of the budget, within that 5-year budget, we believe that we have everything necessary to achieve the 2024 moon landing. As far as the process by which we get to the moon, we're going to be using this base period largely to work with our contractors to figure out what the right solution sets are. And for those solution sets, Doug, I'll turn it to you if you want to answer on the technical aspects.
Sure, sir. So, Tim, great question. It always seems as if folks want to know what the exact plan is, and I think as the administrator just said, and as I referenced at the very beginning, we still have a lot of work to do to lock down the exact plan, depending upon how exact you want it to be. We know the major components, right? And we, in fact, submitted a plan to Congress with budget numbers attached on how much it would cost us to go ahead and achieve the Artemis 3 mission, and we're still very, very confident in the numbers we gave. Clearly, the major components of that plan, which I articulated already, are known. It's the SLS, and in this case, to get there by 2024, we plan 3 SLS launches. It's the Orion space capsule, and again, by 2024, we'll have launched our 3rd Orion on 3 progressively more complicated missions leading up to the landing system. It's our ground system, which has been under development at Kennedy Space Center with all the attendant pieces for many, many years. It's the gateway that, despite the fact that we will likely not use it for the 2024 mission, is still going to serve as a communication hub for that mission. Something very important to remember. It's going to be our high bandwidth communication back from the surface for the moon for 2024, and will be used right after that on the next mission for landing. And then, of course, this component, the human landing system that we're announcing today, which we will eventually select the exact designs to go ahead and go to the moon. So we know all the pieces. We know what the dollars are that we intend to spend on it. We know the timelines. You referenced the study that we did a little while ago to go ahead and lock down the cost of our first, towards our first mission, the Artemis 1 mission. We have a very high confidence cost estimate for Artemis 1. We're doing that same thing right now for Artemis 2 and Artemis 3. So we think we have all of the pieces to go ahead and tell Congress, here's what it looks like, here's what it's going to do, here are still the open items, which of these human landers will be first, what exact requirements they'll have, those will still be things that we investigate during the base period here, as the boss just said. But I think we've got a very, very complete picture of what this looks like and what it's going to cost.
I think another thing to add, Tim, is how differently we're doing this than we've ever done it before. If we look at the way NASA historically operates, NASA would write thousands of requirements and then basically design how people are going to go to the moon in the requirements, and then we would hire a contractor to build what it is that NASA designed. In this case, we're doing it entirely differently. We know that we've got partners out there that have already invested large sums of their own money into these capabilities. And so now we turn to them and we say, okay, how do we partner with you in a meaningful way to make you successful and at the same time make NASA successful? And so that opens kind of the aperture for our approach in a way that isn't, it's not done traditionally. So for example, some of the partners that are even on the phone right now have invested, I don't want to say how much they've invested, but a lot of money. And that's not the way it was done in the 1960s when we went to the moon. And so they're bringing to the table not just ideas, but resources. And we're bringing to the table resources. And in the end, we're going to be able to achieve the landing on the moon by 2024, and at the same time, make sure that it's sustainable for the long run.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Keith Cowan. Keith?
Keith Cowan from NASA Watch. I got a question here, and I'm going to compare Apollo to Artemis. During Apollo, they flew the LEM 3 times before it actually landed with people on the moon. The capsule went up a bunch of times. I'm a little confused based on these 3 concepts as to whether, especially with Dynetics, if there will be an uncrewed landing of that. Because it sounds to me like the first time that you'll fly the actual full-up human lander thing is with people in it. Am I correct? Or are there 3 different approaches here that are confusing me?
So, Keith, I know at least one of the proposers was going to do an uncrewed landing before a crewed landing, but I'll leave it to Lisa Watson-Morgan if you want to go into the details on that. And it's also important to note that as we go through the base period, these things can be changed and refined. So, Lisa, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. This is Lisa. It's a really good question, and I can understand why there could be some confusion. I want to kind of highlight and sort of capture for you what we're going to do in the first 3 months, because actually it kind of weaves in answers from many of the previous questions. So the HLS team, we're going to spend the first 3 months understanding the awardees' designs. Like you said, they're all 3 substantively different. And so they will each have different philosophies. They have proposed different tests and all that. So part of the traditional side of NASA is that we perform insight. And one of the first things we are going to review is the verification and validation plans, which I know you're very familiar with. It will show, do we inspect? Do we test? What are we going to analyze? How are we going to make sure these systems are certifiable for humans? So, of course, the short answer is no, it's not going to be the first time. And so in the first 3 months, this is far more than just studies. It's going to encompass deep design, development, long lead procurements for each of the awardees. And we're going to complete the first phase of that and culminating to a PDR level of maturity that then will lead to a continuation review. And all that will occur before the February timeframe, so we know quickly who we think has, or which ones have the best shot of making 2024. And so initially we're going to get in with them elbow to elbow, virtually at this point, and review their design and construction standards. And, those are the standards that tell the engineers how to assemble, fracture control, looking at the strength and life assessments, crimping and all that. So we're going to get down and make sure in the first 3 months we are ready to start, and that there aren't going to be, any later on quibbles about what standards are we going to use or how are we going to do this. So that's going to culminate into giving us all the information and data that we need to make an intelligent selection. And in that time, as we are assessing their design, the first flight test will be assessed. And so we'll look at it and we will do the verification steps and make sure that we have all the data to where we are comfortable from a safety community of putting humans, our astronauts, on those systems. And so could be many. There could be, different types of and levels of flight tests. But so the short answer is no, we won't just send them up there and let them enter the spacecraft for the first time without tests.
Hey, Keith, this is Doug. Let me jump in and just give you amplify Lisa's remarks by just giving you an example. So you recall that for our commercial crew program, there was no stated government requirement for an unmanned test flight for a test before we went ahead and did a crew test. But clearly, both contractors working with the government came to the same conclusion that we would do an uncrewed test flight, which, as you know, we have done successfully with SpaceX, and we're going to go ahead and repeat for Boeing. So we're in a very, very similar situation here. We've tried to leave the requirements open for folks to propose great ideas, but as Lisa said, we are very aware of the hazards and responsibilities that we owe to our brave astronauts who will go on this mission. And there's no question we are not going to send anybody up on vehicles we don't have 100% faith in, and that is very, very likely to include more than one flight test.
And I'll double down on that. A couple of things. Lisa mentioned something that I think is important. She mentioned that she said which one of the contractors would be able to achieve a 2024 landing. And then, so during this base period, we're going to be assessing what is the highest probability of success for a 2024 landing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the other contractors are not tremendously valuable and important as we work towards a long-term sustainable approach to human landing on the moon. And so different contractors, as we go through the base period, different contractors might naturally gravitate towards different parts of what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve speed, and we're trying to achieve sustainability. So it's not necessarily true that every contractor might want to achieve both speed and sustainability, although that might be where we start, and of course that's what we're trying to achieve. But different contractors might gravitate towards different sides of that equation. Which means if they're going for the sustainability piece, then they may very well need they'll have more time to do uncrewed landings on the moon if we deem that that's appropriate.
Hey, this is Marshall Smith. I just Director of Human Lunar Exploration Programs. I just wanted to add, part of our acquisition strategy was to let the contractors propose to us how they thought that the best way to prove out their architectures. And that's really what we got. We use that as part of the evaluation, but we know going into this, if we're not satisfied with some things, that we will go through and work with them to do exactly what Doug and the administrator pull on us to make sure we do it safely.
Thank you, Marshall, and thank you, everybody. We're going to go to our next question. I believe it's Robert Perlman. Robert?
Thank you. With regards to looking back at Apollo, Grumman was given the LEM contract in March of 1963, and the first time a crewed flight was possible was in March of 1969, 6 years later. And that was with the benefit of NASA's full attention, both all of its workforce and funding, which was about $3.2 billion in today's money. Can you, for Jim or Doug, can you talk to the confidence, where you find the confidence that this approach will result in a landing with considerably less time and with a split focus at first?
I'll go ahead and let Doug, you can take it, Doug.
Yeah, sir, thank you, and thanks for that question. It's actually one of my favorite questions. We have delved deeply into the history of the LEM award, which your dates are a little bit different than mine. I actually showed being awarded a little bit earlier than that, November of '62. But but we'll check both our history books later on that. It took them about 6.5 years. When we really delved into the whole process that they went through, we found out something very interesting. There was a huge break, over a 2-year break, between the preliminary design review for the LEM and the critical design review for the LEM. And we asked the question, why? Because that's a very unusual length of time for that. And it turned out the answer is because they had a major change of requirements in that period. And from my acquisition experience, and I think from anybody on the phone who's ever done acquisition, that is an incredibly important indicator to tell you and to remind us all that if we don't get the requirements right up front, we will pay for it for the rest of the program, and it will slow us down. It will slow us down significantly, as it did for the engineers in the 60s. So that is one of the reasons why, as Lisa has articulated, this first base period is so critical. We have got to make sure we have the requirements for the system right. An extra month that we take in the very beginning to make sure we have the requirements right will save us a year on the back end of having to change things. And so this is why our focus is so firmly on working with the contractors, getting the requirements right, helping them select technologies that we know exist. The other advantage we have is we have technologies that exist today that had to be invented back in the 60s. We don't have to invent technologies today to make this work. We can make this work with technologies that are on the shelf. We still have to assemble them correctly. We have to design them correctly. We have to put the right requirements on them. But we have full confidence that we can go ahead and get this done in the next 4.5 years. Lisa, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it's important to note, thank you, Doug. I think it is important to note that we do have a lot more infrastructure than what Apollo, that NASA had during the Apollo era. We are also, as Administrator Bridenstine said at the beginning, we are trying to this approach with commercial to work with them hand in hand, pulling the best and the speed of what they have to offer with the safety culture of NASA to try to strike that balance of moving fast. We're going to work reviews where we're arm in arm with them. We're really pushing the envelope. And like Mr. Loverro said, we are also focusing in this first 3 months to make sure we have it right. And so once we have it right, then not mess with it. And let's continue and help get us to the moon quickly. But also, there will be another group, potentially, who could work on the sustaining side and have the longer vision of reusability. So we're going to work to make sure we have all that properly defined.
Thank you. We'll go to our next question from Marina.
Hi, everyone. This is Marina Corn with The Atlantic. I hope everyone is doing well. Jim, I'd like to ask you about SpaceX. Elon Musk has spent the last couple of days sharing some controversial opinions about the country's response to the coronavirus pandemic, and they aren't exactly in line with the thoughtful response that we've seen coming from NASA. So I'm wondering, how is your response to the pandemic going to influence your approach to SpaceX in this Artemis effort, and particularly to Elon?
Well, I would need to see specifically what was said, but certainly I'll tell you this: we at NASA we've taken the coronavirus pandemic very seriously. We've had a number of our people infected by it, and in fact, we've lost lives because of it at the agency. So we do take it seriously, and we're also very anxious to get back to work. Look what we're doing right now. We've gotten to where we are in the midst of the pandemic because we're all working remotely. And I'll tell you from my perspective, in many cases, our productivity goes up when we work from home, largely because we don't spend a lot of time commuting. The level of engagement that you're able to have actually increases. If I'm trying to organize meetings face to face, it slows things down. But when everything is a phone call or a conference call away, we actually can get more work done. And I'll tell you, I've been very proud of the agency as we've moved forward. Commercial Crew, which of course SpaceX is very involved in, has gone forward in a meaningful way. It's important for the country. We need access to the International Space Station. Commercial Crew is going to make sure that we have that access to the International Space Station. We've been able to move forward with the Mars Perseverance rover, which we're going to launch here in July. So it's a team effort. I think what I'm in charge of is how NASA responds, and I'll let SpaceX answer for how they respond to coronavirus.
And I'm happy to send you some of the tweets that so far the view from some people is that Elon isn't taking this pandemic seriously. So if that is the case, how do you think that's going to affect your partnership if it does?
Wrong press conference. Let's move on.
All right, we'll move on.
We're going to take our next question from Joey from Reuters.
Hey, thanks so much for doing this. For Doug and Jim or anyone who wants to chime in, can you say how many companies submitted bids for this contract? I know Boeing announced publicly that they submitted a proposal. What about their proposal led them not to be selected, and did its performance on Starliner and SLS play a role in NASA's decision? Thanks.
I think I'll leave that for Lisa Morgan.
Yeah, exactly, Lisa.
Sure, and actually I think I might want to offer up Tyler Cochran, our procurement lead for us to help us with this question.
So yeah, we'd have to point back to the BAA on that one, I think. What exactly are we asking?
Sorry, yeah, was Boeing's proposal, what was the reasons for not choosing Boeing's proposal? Did its performance in Starliner and SLS play a role in not selecting them?
So we'll be posting a selection statement online after this. I would encourage you to just take a look at that.
Thank you. And could you say how many companies submitted bids for this contract?
That'll also be covered in there.
Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to start wrapping this up, but first I'm going to turn it over to the administrator, who has a little bit of a special presentation.
Yeah, no, it's been good. I appreciate everybody for paying attention to what we're doing and getting partnerships with our commercial companies that are going to help us get to the moon. We have with us some of the companies and their representatives, and I wanted to give each of them a few minutes to say what they're interested in and express anything you'd like to express. So we'll start with Elon Musk, Chief Engineer of SpaceX.
Thank you, Jim. First of all, I'd like to just express a great appreciation to NASA for selecting SpaceX. I appreciate the faith in the SpaceX team, the Starship architecture. We've been a partner with NASA for a long time, and we've done 20 missions to the space station, and look forward to providing the capability that we've bid, as well as potentially a lot more over time. I think we've got potential for an incredibly exciting future in space, with a base on the moon, and ultimately sending people and having a self-sustaining city on Mars. I think that's the future, an incredibly exciting future that's possible, and the support of NASA is very much appreciated. And I'd like to thank the SpaceX team, who worked incredibly hard to get to this point, and continue to do so. Yeah, that's all I have to say. And I think this is something that can be incredibly inspiring for the whole world. So thank you for doing this, and again, very much appreciated.
Elon, we appreciate you very much. The partnership with SpaceX, with commercial resupply and now Commercial Crew, we're very excited about May 27th, launching American astronauts again from American soil, and that partnership has been strong, and we're grateful for all of the leadership and support that SpaceX has provided in that effort. Next, we have Kim Doering from Dynetics. She's the VP of Space Systems.
Good afternoon. On behalf of our lander team, Dynetics, our parent company Leidos, and our industry partners, I want to tell you how thrilled we are to be selected for this award. And I want to thank NASA and the nation for giving us the opportunity to land the first woman and the next man on the moon. The Dynetics team recognizes the gravity and the responsibility that accompany this opportunity, and we've assembled an experienced team of government and industry partners with flight-proven technology. We are all looking forward to helping NASA achieve the 2024 goal of returning the U.S. astronauts to the lunar surface, and we're really excited about enabling a long-term commercial lunar economy. It is a great day for Dynetics, it's a great day for NASA, and a great day for the country. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Well, thank you, Kim. And then we have from Blue Origin, Bob Smith, the CEO.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Thanks very much. This is a truly historic day, and I just want to congratulate NASA for having the leadership to actually bring us to this day. I know I speak for many on our team that going to the moon is the reason why we got into this business, and we couldn't be more excited about that. We're all very fortunate to humbly stand on the shoulders of Apollo. We now have the opportunity to make Artemis as inspirational as Apollo was. And so, since we're going back to say we can be confident that this legacy will live on. On behalf of Blue Origin and our partners, comprised of Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Draper, I really want to say thanks for entrusting us with this opportunity. This truly is a noble endeavor with a serious purpose. So we've assembled a highly accomplished national team. This is the kind of thing that's so ambitious that it needs to be done with partners. It's the only way to get back to the moon fast, in my view. Our team's been working well together for over a year now, and we're well down the path using the heritage we have from work on Orion, on Cygnus, on New Shepard, and on our BE-7 engine. We're ready to go to work, and we're going to go do everything in our power to move quickly to get us to the moon safely and without sacrificing the ability to go there in a sustainable fashion. That's how we'll build a future in space, step by step. Thanks again, and back to you, Jim.
Well, thank you, Bob. And we're grateful for Blue Origin stepping up to the plate. We haven't had a big contract with Blue Origin like this in the past, and we look forward to what it brings. And of course, I didn't mention it, but Dynetics has been an amazing partner for NASA for decades, long history of accomplishments and capability. So we're grateful for all of these partners. Thank you for stepping up to the plate. Thank you for putting together great proposals with very innovative solutions. There is no doubt that NASA and the United States of America is going to benefit from going forward with each of these amazing companies that have really invested so much of their own resources already. You know, the question came up earlier, what gives you confidence that you're going to be able to get this done and with the velocity that you're talking about? And the answer is we've got these great companies that have many years of history, but we also have great companies that have already invested so much of their own resources into this effort. So we're further ahead than many people might believe, based on the fact that we're making the announcement today, but so much work has already happened. So this is an exciting time. We are moving forward with Space Policy Directive 1. We're going to the moon. We're going sustainably. We're going with commercial partners. We're going with international partners. We're going to use the resources of the moon, namely the water ice. And then ultimately, as Elon said just a few minutes ago, the goal is to get to Mars. And we all share that as the ambition that we need to achieve. So with that, I want to thank everybody for participating. Bettina, I'll turn it back over to you, and you can share with everybody where they can get more resources.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you for all our guests today for joining us for this call. We really appreciate it. As a reminder, you can listen to a replay of this teleconference later today by calling 1-800-333-1864. Replays will be available until May 30th at 1-800-333-1864. You can also get more information on everything that is going on nasa.gov/moon to Mars. We'll be posting additional information about the selection and additional details about the human landing system on the site. As always, if there's any questions, we're sorry we couldn't get to every question in the queue, but you can email one of myself or one of the PAOs, and we'll be happy to get you additional information. So thank you so much for joining today's call, and we will talk to you soon.